Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Lynn Peer, and today we're going to do a presentation on stress management in the workplace. So I'm going to start off by sharing my screen with you. There we go. So today we're going to go through some information. Feel free to take notes if you'd like. The first slide, of course, is defining what is stress. Stress is the psychological, physiological, and behavioral response by an individual when they perceive a lack of equilibrium between the demands placed upon them and their ability to meet those demands, which over a period of time leads to ill health. So what might be some of the symptoms of stress? Before we move on to the next slide, if you'd like to just take a moment and write down if you're feeling stressed right now, or in the past few weeks, perhaps at work or at home, make a list for yourself. What are some of the symptoms that you might be dealing with your stress? Just take a moment and do that now. And in the next slide, we're going to go over some of the symptoms of stress that have been identified. Although we all experience stress differently, some common symptoms might include difficulty sleeping. Some people might experience weight gain or weight loss, depending on the stressors. Stomach pain, irritability, teeth grinding, panic attacks, headaches and migraines even, difficulty concentrating. Some might experience sweaty hands or feet, heartburn. Excessive sleeping might be the opposite of difficult sleeping, insomnia. Social isolation, fatigue, nausea, even feelings of being overwhelmed, and obsessive or compulsive behaviors. Why is stress helpful? Well, historically, stress actually was our friend. It acted as a protective mechanism that warned us of danger, that fight or flight response, right? So that natural reaction that told us to run if there was a tiger running after us. This response is referred to as that fight or flight response or the stress response. When your evolutionary ancestors saw that saber-toothed cat and then they ran from it, that stress actually saved their lives. But stress has remained part of the evolutionary drive because of its usefulness in survival. When used at the right time, stress increases our awareness and actually improves physical performance in short bursts. Well, I jumped ahead there one too much. See if I can go back. Here we go. So what is stress versus burnout? Well, we all know that stress is actually inevitable, but burnout isn't. So while stress is our response sometimes, burnout is the accumulation of excessive stressors over time, which result in unmanageable stress levels. So American psychologist Herbert Freudenberger, quite the last name, first termed the word burnout in the 1970s, referring to the effect of extreme stress and high ideals placed on helping professionals, such as doctors and nurses. Today, the world has evolved, and it is now used more broadly to refer to the consequences of excessive stress placed on an individual, no matter their occupation. So when we get to the point of no longer being able to cope, we are burned out like a candle. This is where stress management can offer tools and help people avoid the unpleasant experience of burnout. So let's go over just a few facts about stress and burnout, because stress has been referred to as a silent killer, as it can cause heart disease, high blood pressure, chest pain, irregular heartbeats. Telogen effluvium, is a result of hair loss caused by stress that can happen up to 3 months after a stressful event has occurred. And stress accounts for 30% of all infertility problems in women Stress can cause spasms in the fallopian tubes and uterus, and in men, it can reduce sperm count and cause erectile dysfunction. Researchers have found that stress worsens acne more so than the prevalence of oily skin. Stress can cause weight gain. The stress hormone cortisol has been found to cause both the accumulation of abdominal fat and the enlargement of fat cells, causing diseased fat. Correlations have been found between stress and the top 6 causes of death, which are cancer, lung ailments, heart disease, liver cirrhosis, accidents, and suicides. A few more facts about stress and burnout. In children, chronic stress has been found to negatively impact their developmental growth due to a reduction of the growth hormone in the pituitary gland. The word itself, stress, stems from the Latin word stingere, meaning to draw tight. In the event of chronic stress, dominant hormones are released into our brain. And these hormones are intended for short-term emergencies. And in the event where they exist for extended periods, they can shrink, impair, and kill brain cells. Stress can increase the likelihood of developing blood clots, since the blood prepares itself for injuries and becomes stickier. Chronic stress can place pressure on and cause damage to arteries and organs. This occurs due to inflation in our bodies, caused by cytokines. Stress is also responsible for altering our blood sugar levels, which can lead to fatigue, hypoglycemia, mood swings, and metabolic syndrome. On a positive note, we can reduce our stress levels by laughing. Having a chuckle lowers the stress hormone, including cortisol, epinephrine, and adrenaline. Laughing also strengthens our immune system by releasing positive hormones. So the best thing to do is to get out a few comedies and watch some of those or watch some funny videos. Laughter is the best medicine. Some more good news, especially for chocolate lovers, is dark chocolate has been found to reduce the stress hormones. So that's a good thing. So let's review some tips that we have for stress management. The first tip is to understand your stress, specifically to you. How do you stress? It can be different for everybody. By understanding what stress looks like for you, you can better be prepared and reach for your stress management toolbox when needed. Next is to identify your stress sources. What causes you to be stressed? Might it be work, family, change, or any other potential 1,000 triggers? There could be so many different things that might cause you stress. The key is to choose how you respond to that stress. Number 3, learn to recognize stress signals. We all process stress differently, so it's important to be aware of your individual stress symptoms. What are your internal alarm bells? Low tolerance, perhaps headaches, tummy pains, or it might be a combination from all of the symptoms of stress that we went over. Number 4, it's important to recognize your stress strategies. What is your go-to tactic for calming down? These can be behaviors learned over years, or sometimes there's not a lot of healthy options. For example, some people cope with stress by self-medicating with alcohol or even overeating. There's so many different ways that people respond to stress negatively, and we want to give you some positive ways to respond to your stressors. Number 5 is to implement healthy stress management strategies. So it's good to be mindful of any current unhealthy coping behaviors so that you can switch them out for a healthy option. So for example, if overeating is your current go-to, you could practice meditation instead, or make a decision to phone a friend to chat through your situation. The American Psychological Association suggests that switching out one behavior at a time is most effective for creating positive changes and new behaviors. Number 6, make self-care a priority. And I did a training presentation on self-care, which many of you have at your disposal, and I can share that with you again as well. So when we make time for ourselves and we put our well-being before others, this can feel kind of selfish maybe to start, but it's like the airplane analogy that we're all familiar with, that we must put our own oxygen mask on before we can assist others. The simplest things that promote well-being, such as getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, having some downtime, and exercise, is often the ones that get overlooked. Self-care during stressful times, there's the link right there if you'd like to have a look at that presentation once again. Number 7 is to ask for support when needed. If you're feeling overwhelmed, perhaps reaching out to a friend or family member that you can talk to. Speaking with a healthcare professional can also reduce stress and help us learn healthier coping strategies. So let's review now a few different stress management techniques and strategies. So these tips are things that we can all benefit from doing more of. The techniques are categorized into 3 groups. The first group is action-oriented approaches, used to take action to change a stressful situation. The next one is emotion-oriented approaches, used to change the way we perceive a stressful situation. Can you look at something that's happened in a different light? Maybe look at it from a different perspective and see how things change. Number 3 is acceptance-oriented approaches, used for dealing with stressful situations that are actually outside of our control. So a few different stress management techniques and strategies. Let's talk about the action-oriented approaches for a moment. Stress is inevitable, but distress is not. So number 1, be assertive. Clear and effective communication is the key to being assertive. When we're assertive, we can ask for what we want or need and also explain what is bothering us. The key is doing this in a fair and firm manner, while still having empathy for others. Once you identify what you need to communicate, you can stand up for yourself and be proactive in altering stressful situations. This is where the Nlp communication model is of particular use. So let me explain how this works. And I've also put a link in here of a great explanation from my trainers that I did trainings with, Drs. Tad and Adriana James. At the 105 mark, they explain the Nlp Model of Communication, which is what we'll review next. So have a look at this picture. I'm going to explain how this works. So an external event comes into and comes inside our neurology and filters. As you'll notice, some of the filters we delete, distort, and generalize all the time. Some of the other filters in our brain are the filters of time, space, matter, energy, language, memories, decisions, metaprograms, and metaprograms are our most unconscious filters, our values, beliefs, and attitudes. And all of these filter what our experience is, and then we make an internal representation, which is made up of VAKOG, which are the pictures that we make in our head, the sounds we hear, the feelings we feel, the smells we smell, and the tastes. Then finally, we label those experiences with our internal dialogue. The words you use constitute suggestions to the unconscious mind. What you may not be aware of is your internal dialogue constitutes suggestions to your unconscious mind on a regular basis, each and every day. Your point of view also makes a difference to what kind of suggestions you're making to the unconscious mind. And most people don't realize that we actually have 11 million bits of information per second that comes into our neurology of our human nervous system. The human brain can handle 126 bits per second. But now imagine someone is handing you a toothpick and then 126 of them per second. Now imagine 126 toothpicks per second coming into your hand, which you can probably handle, and then you dump it, and then dump it each second. But now imagine 11 million per second. You have got to grab 126 and put them in your other hand. The brain is an information processing unit and makes it into an internal representation. So that's why we delete, distort, and generalize, because we cannot handle the amount of information that's coming into our nervous system, into our brain. And there are 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information that our brains can handle at any given time. We take 126 bits of info, and we take it and we group it into chunks for manageable levels of information. You see, most people can't remember any more than 7 items of any particular product category. It's a known fact in marketing. Now, the perceptions that we hold are deleted, distorted, and generalized greatly, from the 11 million bits down to 126, which is why we leave out so much information. Have you ever noticed you might have gone to, let's say, a concert or a party with a friend, and you were both at the same place, but you both took away such different experiences? Someone might have deleted information and someone didn't, right? Or they generalized, right? So it happens all the time. The human nervous system is designed to recognize patterns, and you're leaving out so much information. It's just not possible to attend to everything. And that's why some people get overwhelmed. It's because there's too much information coming into the nervous system and to the brain at one time. And that creates stress and overwhelm. And did you ever notice that people treat their perceptions differently? Some people have to see certain relationships between things where others have to have it explained, or so they can hear it, and still others have to actually get a grasp or a feeling for the relationship. This is, in essence, the communication model in NLP. So my internal representation determines my state. What state are you in? Are you in a happy state, a depressed state, an anxious state? So those internal representations determine your state, your behavior, and the results that you're getting. So one of the secrets of NLP is that if we can be in charge of our internal representations, which allows us to be in charge of our state, which allows us to be in charge of our physiology, if all these things are under control, then the behavior we're going to produce is going to be the most effective and efficient, and it will produce the best results for us. So that's, in essence, a little overview of the NLP communication model. So let's continue on and look at more different stress management techniques and strategies. So number 3, reduce the noise. Switching off all the technology, screen time, and constant stimuli can help us slow down. How often do you go offline? Is it worth changing for your own sake, right? So when do you dial it down at night? Are you looking at your phone or watching TV right up until the time you go to bed? That, of course, can really affect your sleep. Next, make time for some quietness each day. You may notice how all those seemingly urgent things we need to do become less important and crisis-like. That to-do list will be there when you're in a place to return to it. Remember that recharging is a very effective way of tackling the stress. Next is to talk about managing your time. If we let them, our days will consume us, and before we know it, the months have become overwhelmingly busy. When we prioritize and organize our tasks, we create a less stressful and more enjoyable life. Talking about that chunk size as to not feel overwhelmed. Remember, 7 plus or minus 2 chunk size bits of information that we can process at any given time. When you're doing your to-do list, if you mark down 3 things and then you continue on and mark down 5, 7, 10 things, the more things that you have on your to-do list, the more that you may feel overwhelmed, and that's because of the chunk size. So it's to break it down and perhaps notice where you start to panic and only put, let's say, 3 things at a time on your list. Have a master list, of course, and then transfer the top 3 most important things to get done right away. Creating boundaries. This is a key. Boundaries are the internal set of rules that we establish for ourselves, and they actually outline what behaviors we will and won't accept, right? So, the saying goes, we teach people how to treat us, how much time and space we need from others, and what priorities that we have. Now, creating healthy boundaries are essential for a stress-less life. When we have healthy boundaries, we respect ourselves and take care of our well-being by clearly expressing our boundaries to others. Next is to get out of your head. Sometimes it's best not to even try contending with the racing thoughts. Sometimes you just need a break. Distract yourself. Watch a movie, a comedy, phone or catch up with a friend. Go for a walk, do some exercise, or do something positive that takes your mind off things. Meditation, yoga, stretch, visualize your happy place. That's one technique I do with many clients is get them to visualize a happy place and go back to that place. In the words of William James, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. So a few more, let's go over some emotion-oriented approaches that are used to change the way that we perceive stressful situations. And one way to do that is by using affirmations, imagery, and anchoring. Anchoring is an NLP technique. The power of positive imagery and affirmations is now scientifically proven to increase positive emotion. And how is that done? Well, when you think of a positive experience, your brain perceives it to be a reality. That's how the unconscious mind works. Your imagination is part of your unconscious mind. So replace those negative thoughts with positive statements and challenge and change the way that you see and experience the world. Next, a little exercise using NLP anchoring is to remember a specific time when you were happy, laughing. I want you to go back to that time now. What did you see, hear, and feel? Maybe press down on your knuckle and anchor those feelings into your neurology. Now you can do this and repeat it up to 20 times. And then each time that you notice yourself laughing, press down on that same knuckle to anchor laughter and happiness into your body. Now let's talk about cognitive restructuring. In the mid-1950s, psychologist Dr. Albert Ellis developed what cognitive restructuring, a technique for understanding negative emotions and challenging the sometimes incorrect beliefs that cause them. Cognitive restructuring is a key component of cognitive behavior therapy, a type of talk therapy that helps the client to restructure negative thinking. Another emotion-oriented approach is called the ABC technique. The ABC technique was also originally created by the psychologist Dr. Albert Ellis and was later adapted by Martin Seligman. The letters ABC stand for A, adversity, or the stressful event. B, are beliefs, or the way that you respond to the event. And C, consequences. The result of your beliefs lead to the actions and outcome of that event. So essentially, the more optimistic your beliefs are, the more positive the outcome will be. And I've put a link to a video that explains the ABC technique for your reference if you'd like to go and watch that video. Now let's talk about the acceptance-oriented approaches. Acceptance-oriented approaches are useful in stressful situations that you actually cannot control. So these are things that are not within your control. Diet and exercise, you've heard it before, but you are what you eat. You've heard that before. So it's to be mindful of having a balanced and healthy lifestyle and a balanced diet. Now, this is something that you can control. Making simple diet changes such as reducing alcohol, caffeine, and sugar intake is a proven way of reducing anxiety. Another guaranteed way to reduce stress is to move your body in healthy ways and exercise. It's proven to also be effective as an antidepressant in relieving mild depression. What else can you do? Meditation and physical relaxation. So when you're feeling like things are not into your control, you can use some of these techniques such as deep breathing, 7-11 breathing, breathing in through the nose for 7 seconds and breathing out through the mouth for 11 seconds. And doing this for as little as 2 to 3 minutes can help calm your whole nervous system down. Using guided visualizations, yoga, maybe even guided body scans. Go from head to toe to see where you're feeling the tension and ask your unconscious mind to release that tension. These activities help to relax the body. Next is to build resilience. Resiliency is our ability to bounce back from stressful or negative experiences. To simplify, resilient people are skilled at accepting that the situation has occurred. They learn from that, from what transpired, and then it's to move on from it. So there's some activities and worksheets that can be found at the link that I've listed on resilience that you can do on your own. Next is to talk it out. Don't hold it all inside. Talk to someone close to you about your worries or the things that are getting you down. Sharing worries can cut them in half and also give you a chance to laugh at potentially absurd situations. You just never know. If you don't feel up to sharing, writing them down is also a great way to release them. Or maybe engage with an independent professional. And so when I do some of the different activities with clients, once they write them down, all of their worries, all of their anxieties and negative thoughts, then once they have that, they can shred them or burn them. And that is a signal to the unconscious mind that they're being released and gone. Sleep. Sleep is hugely important. Getting a good night's sleep is fundamental for recharging and dealing with stressful situations in the best possible way. While it varies from individual to individual on the exact amount of sleep that we actually need, an uninterrupted sleep of approximately 7 to 8 hours is generally recommended for most people. Now let's get into talking about workplace stress. The effects of workplace stress aren't simply isolated to the workplace because they do spill over and oftentimes spill over into our personal relationships, our home lives, and our overall productivity. Duke University found that workplace stress was responsible for over 70% of workplace accidents, 50% of absenteeism, and over $300 billion in associated costs. And these figures require action. We need to do something to help people to be able to alleviate some of their stress. Some of the symptoms of workplace stress can manifest physically into headaches and stomach aches and pains, fatigue or eating too much of the wrong foods, sleeping disturbances, stuff that we've already spoken about. Cognitively, trouble with concentrating, decision-making, thinking, and remembering. And emotionally, feeling down, tense, and perhaps even irritated at work. So some personal strategies for stress management are to set realistic deadlines at work and make sure that you do take a lunch break. I often see people working through their lunch, eating at their desks, and that's not giving the mind and the body the break that it needs. To go home on time, to take your holiday leave, to leave work at work, participate in work functions, something that might be fun, establish open and professional communication, respect other employees, do not tolerate discrimination of any sort, and report any instances. Sign up for workplace training programs to develop and improve your skills. And if required, seek therapy to manage and develop skills to cope with workplace stressors. Develop a healthy work-life balance, creating time for exercise, making healthy meals, and releasing emotional stressors. Because you're worth it, you need to take time for yourself and look after your health. Massage therapy is one therapy that can help people. Acupuncture, emotion code energy healing, Reiki, guided meditation or meditation on your own, hypnotherapy, yoga can all help alleviate symptoms of stress for many people. So as McGonigal says, imagine the power of rethinking the way we think of stress. If people reduce their stress about being stressed, then entire lives could transform for the healthier. What would happen if instead we recognize stress as an important chemical messaging mechanism that aided in our survival? So there was a TED Talk not long ago, and it's called How to Make Stress Your Friend. I highly recommend watching this short TED Talk by Kelly McGonigal, which is excellent review. So I want to thank you for joining us today, and hopefully that you'll be able to implement a lot of the suggestions that were made here today. And I look forward to speaking with you. If anyone has any questions, then that would be great. So I'm going to stop sharing right now and end the recording. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful day and week ahead. And I encourage you to create your own plan, and that can help you alleviate stress. Bye for now, everyone.